So before we even start, decision engines is a pretty complex topic, and I just want to give you my own example of decision engine. And we make decisions every day, like hundreds, thousands of decisions. And my colleague Richard told you that the customer of the bank expected the quick reactions on the transaction, quick processing time. And I have several of my own personal super important customers who expect even faster decision from me in a very specific case, when they ask me or my wife to buy them a new toy. This is my kids. And pretty much the same way how decision engine for the bank works. I get a lot of data on input. I have my algorithm, how I make decision, and I make a decision, and then I deal with consequences, pretty much like in the bank. Hopefully you will understand this knowledge better than more complex stuff. But the most important thing is, every time this happens, I'm kind of think that I'm an expert in it, because I've been in this situation like 100 times. I know exactly what they will say. I know exactly how my mind works, how I make decisions. But then all of a sudden, every new situation is different. And but the good news, the good thing is that I learn from every occasion like this. And today I will share some of the lessons we learned from developing the decision engine for the bank. And we will start from the first one. Is pretty obvious. Talk to your users and your customers. That's how you get the requirements for the system. That's how you validate if you succeed or fail. But also the important thing when you look into your customers and users is to look into the broader picture, broader groups of people, not just the direct users, direct customers, but people who might potentially be involved or even impacted in good and bad way. And good example is, for instance, we get the most of the requirements for decision engine from the teams who will be mostly responsible for that. For instance, financial monitoring teams or security teams. But the good way to approach requirements for the system is to ask a question. Okay, what will happen in the edge case scenario? What will happen if decision engine will suddenly start declining every single transaction? For some reason, bad data, bad algorithm, some glitch, who will be most impacted? And probably call center will not be happy from the increased number of calls, and you will need to explain to every customer why it happens. So when you create decision engine, you better create the way how to let the customer support team or call center people to troubleshoot it, investigate it, and give exactly the information to the customer why the transaction was failed and how to fix it, how to make sure it works next time. And then the other question, okay, what if on the opposite side of the spectrum, what if the decision engine works perfectly and work fast? Who will be the group of people inside the company who will benefit the most? And potentially it could be the marketing team, because now all of a sudden you can promote it as one of the big advantage of the bank is that our processing is faster than anyone else. That's a great message. So this type of approach of asking questions, what will happen in different situations, will lead you towards some of the very important requirements for a system. For instance, okay, how fast it should be, and so on. So the second lesson is the system should be scalable, because like Richard mentioned, the load go up and down, and your system needs to be ready for that. Because obviously, if the system is overloaded, you are not able to process transaction. Customer will find another way how to make transactions, use another account, and you lose customers. But on opposite side, if you create a gigantic system and it sits idle, guess what? You're just wasting the money on the resources which are not used. So the ideal decision engine should have exactly amount of resources, compute resources, infrastructure, which needs to be, which is enough at this moment for the amount of transactions you get at this moment. And it should scale up and down efficiently. And there are a couple of big examples when transaction amount can jump tremendously. One of them, we took it from London, is the Transport for London, when they switched from they didn't switch from the Oyster cards, but they introduced the ability to pay with the Google Pay or Apple Pay or credit card, wireless technology. That's a great technology, makes life so easier, but then all of a sudden they had a huge increase in number of credit card transactions. And if your decision engine is not ready for this, a couple times jump, then guess what? The system will not work, and the people will be waiting on the entrance to the station, which is not appropriate at all. So the system should scale up quickly and easily. And very important thing is that the cost associated with the scaling up and down should also ideally scale linearly. So because if you increase the capacity of the system twice, you should probably expect to spend twice, maybe less than twice amount of money on the infrastructure. Because if you spend 10 times more to double the capacity of the system, that's not sustainable, that's not scalable. And at some point, guess what? Your customer will feel the pain because you will have to increase the fees for them for the transaction process as well, which is not good. So the lesson number 2 is make sure that system is scalable up and up easily, quickly, and cost efficiently. Very simple. Clouds, by the way, private or public, will help a lot with this. Lesson number 3 is the algorithm, the machine learning algorithm, the data science work is pretty expensive, and this algorithm is pretty efficient. They can work with all type of data, even unstructured data. But in order to make it super efficiently, the algorithm works as good as the data you provide there. So if you provide the algorithm, machine learning algorithm with the unstructured data, with a lot of ambiguity, then the cost of processing will be much higher and the accuracy will be much smaller. So preparing the data in advance, not during the calculation, not during the processing, but way in advance is super important. And I'll just give an example. The one of the biggest problem in decision engine algorithm is to uniquely identify the data that I'm a customer and all of the data the algorithm is using to process my transaction relates to me. And it's a little bit hard to uniquely identify my data if for some reason my name is James Smith, because there are more than 38,000 people with this name in the UK. And by the way, this is the most popular combination of first and second name in the UK. The idea here is that when algorithms start processing the transactions for the James Smith, the algorithm need to get all of the data related to that, and you need to be super sure that that's the data which relates to them, not to some other James Smith, which is a completely different person. And in order to do that, preparing data before, in advance, uniquely identifying the people, for instance, using the unique taxpayer reference or SSN in the US, is the way how you do that. But you have to do it like before the machine learning algorithm steps in. And there is a very simple way how to demonstrate the cost difference. The preparing of data, it's a little bit technical term, but preparing data happens on the CPU mostly, which is several times cheaper than processing unprepared, unstructured data on the GPUs, which are much more complex. So it's also not only faster to prepare data in advance, but it's also cost-efficient way to do that. So the lesson number 3, prepare your data, make sure it's clear, make sure it's uniquely identified, and make sure do it in advance, not during the peak hours. The last but not least lesson is the creating of decision engine is a pretty big system which impacts a lot of areas and a lot of departments, a lot of people in a bank and in a financial company, and it's a great occasion to look into the processes and kind of do a validation of the processes you have. You look at each stage of the process and you decide, okay, do I really need this process or sub-process at all? And that's important because there are sometimes you look into the requirements and you see some of the processes which are outdated, not needed anymore. And the Brexit is a good example. There are some part of the algorithm which included some of the legislation from the European Union which are not required anymore. So the creation of or recreation or modernization of decision engine is a good way to just eliminate the processes which are not needed anymore. That's very simple way of dealing with that. No problem, no process. But if you cannot avoid it, if you cannot eliminate the process, you have to automate it as much as possible. And one of the example is uniquely identifying the James Smith is one of the way how you automate the process. You know, do not ask some person to do it. You just do it automatically, if possible. And only if you cannot eliminate the process, if you cannot automate it, and you have to do it manually, make sure you do it in a way which consumes the minimum amount of time and leaves the minimum room for the error, for the human error. And one of the examples, which is super popular, is the mobile phone SMS or text message validation. Very often on mobile phone, you get the validation message, and then you get the standard keyboard with the letters, not with the numbers. It's very simple fix, very simple solution, which improves the speed and improves the experience of the people. We had an example when one of the mobile application we created, it had input fields, and we added the login, and we figured out that out of 3 attempts, person missed two first times. They missed the input field, and only on the third time they just hit it. So that's very easy fix. You just make the field bigger, and you decrease it from 3 to 1.5. That's already a big improvement. So make sure that any manual process as smooth as possible if you can.